The incy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun.
Yeah.
Babies are amazing. Seemingly helpless and unable to do very much, they are in fact full of possibilities which will in a few short months allow them to develop in a dramatic number of ways. In this video, we'll see some of the major developmental milestones that occur during the first year of life. Physical growth is one part of the picture, but from the moment of birth, babies are also developing as social, emotional, and thinking human beings. Their brains are making important connections as they gain experiences and form relationships with people. In addition to meeting basic needs for food, clothing, and shelter, 4 components have particular importance in the healthy development of babies. They enter into relationships of trust and attachment with the adults who care for them. They have exposure to interesting sights and sounds and textures and smells, all of which are carefully supervised by loving adults. They experience predictability in the gentle routines of everyday life, eating, playing, sleeping, interacting with others, and being alone. The adults who care for them know them well enough to provide an appropriate mix of novelty and sameness of experiences, which may differ for each child. We'll attempt to show you the sequence of development and what adults in the parenting role and those who support parents in that role can do to encourage healthy infant development. Jasper is sleeping, a picture of relaxation and serenity. At 6 weeks, Jasper needs all the sleep he can get, for his waking hours are filled with new sensations, experiences, and contacts with people. Fortunately, most babies arrive in this world well equipped to deal with the challenges that confront them. But for those who need a little extra help, resources exist that were not previously available, and public libraries can often provide the first step toward finding them.
It's going to go over a big bump, though.
As with most infants, Jasper's important people are members of his family. These relationships, solidified over time, are critical to the establishment of what Erik Erikson called basic trust. That is, the ability of the child to see that the world is basically a safe, secure place, and that adults can be counted on to respond lovingly and consistently to his or her needs. From the very beginning, the ways in which a baby is held, fed, cared for, comforted, and played with contribute to feelings of safety and trust. Communication begins early in these close relationships. It starts long before spoken language develops, as the baby's important people establish eye contact, smile directly at the baby, talk and sing to him, and play with the child. In addition to the capacity for becoming deeply attached, babies enter the world with an arsenal of reflexes, some of which disappear fairly quickly, while others remain and require babies to establish new kinds of controls and skills. Jasper's body keeps him busy. Jasper can also express discomfort or displeasure by crying or fussing. He can receive comfort, even if sometimes it doesn't work. He can look briefly at a face or at a bright picture in a book, although right now Jasper doesn't appear to approve of this particular picture. Or he can look at an interesting object. It has been said that the first book a baby reads is the human face, and we can see Jasper and his mother have already formed a loving, intimate bond.
Are you kicking? Y'all clean?
Jasper can also listen, and he's fortunate in that the sounds that surround him are the voices of his family. Listening to the sounds of human speech, hearing songs and conversations are all critical as the child's speech develops from gentle coos to babbling to the first meaningful words, usually by the end of the first year. Babies soak in the sounds they hear, and the songs, rhymes, and words they hear become the basis for their own attempts to communicate with words.
We think waiting is wonderful. Oh, look, he's got this.
A young infant like Jasper can make many of us wish for his energy to sustain vigorous physical activity. Jasper has been put on his tummy frequently for playtime, and he has the added incentive of being able to look at his mother's face if he raises his head. Not all babies do this at the same age. Some may be slightly younger, and some slightly older. But usually the sequence or order of these events is the same. So we can expect Jasper to raise his head, then push with his arms to raise his chest, and gradually, toward the second half of the first year, to gain more control over his lower body as he learns to sit, starts to crawl, and then walk. But right now, pushing up with his arms and lifting his head is a great achievement. The gentle and loving care Jasper receives from his family helps him to feel accepting of the care they provide for him. He's rarely in a baby seat or swing, so that he experiences firsthand and constantly the intimate pleasure of human touch. Jasper's movements and his trusting gaze elicit loving responses from members of his family. Other important parts of Jasper's day. Among his favorite activities, we would certainly have to list nursing. Not only does Jasper feel relaxed, comfortable, and safe in his mother's arms, but Kristen can sneak a few pages of a book as a welcome break. At 3 months of age, Maddox still requires a great deal of sleep. But when he's awake, he's alert and curious, attentive to all the new sights and sounds around him. He holds his head steadily and focuses his eyes intently on things that interest him. He coos quietly in response to his mother's gentle voice, almost seeming to understand the reciprocity of human conversation. These sounds and his mother's responses to them are important steps in developing language, and so are the loving sounds that his father murmurs into his ear. While Maddox can get his hand into his mouth with some accuracy, his grasp is uncertain, and efforts to hold objects are still a bit hit or miss. Maddox becomes still when a strange adult approaches, but the safety of his mother's arms provides sufficient security for him to tolerate the new person. And he's not camera shy.
All right. All right. It's for lunch, right?
At 7 months of age, Giovanni sits securely, without support. He uses 2 hands to get objects to his mouth. He engages briefly with his caregiver to look at a book. And demonstrates that he can uncover a hidden object. When he's on his belly, he stretches toward a desirable toy and pushes up with his arms, getting his chest well off the floor. But perhaps the most powerful and touching lesson Giovanni can teach us is about the strength of his passionate attachment to his mother, and she to him. At the end of a long day he has spent at daycare, and she at work, their reunion is something they both hunger for. No book or toy or song or other person can compete with their need to be reunited and physically close. Giovanni makes his need very, very clear, and his mother responds. The at-home parents need contact with other adults and an outside activity or two if they are to avoid going a little stir-crazy. And for parents who have to work away from home and baby, feelings of isolation can also be very strong, as co-workers are not always interested in the joys and concerns of parenting a baby. Public libraries are becoming increasingly aware of and responsive to these needs of families with very young children. At 3 months, Maddox is at a good age to accompany his dad on a brief tour of the Family Place Library. Maddox is content to nestle quietly in his father's arms as they accompany the librarian to see the parenting and play resources of the library. If the family visits the library regularly in the future, Maddox will learn to see it as a friendly place, accepting of the natural noises of children at play and filled with the kinds of toys and books few families can afford to have at home. Many libraries now provide places and programs for parents to meet, to chat, to admire each other's babies, to share parenting tips, and learn about useful community resources, in addition to exploring the traditional riches of the library. In the company of others, parents can be reminded of books, nursery rhymes, songs, and language games their babies will enjoy.
The mommies and the daddies go shh.
Most are learning to sit without support, although they may need the comfort of their parents' laps. Babies are briefly interested in each other, but it's the parents who have the most to share. Babies prefer to survey the social scene from the comfort of a parent's arms and will demand to be held or carried, especially after a separation. This intense attachment needs to be protected in group situations. Small groups of parents and babies allow flexibility in meeting individual needs and are essential if overstimulation is to be avoided.
Down came the rain and washed the spider out.
Nine-month-old Simon, his sister Emma, and their mother visit the library frequently. Simon enjoys sitting briefly to share a picture book with his mom, but he also enjoys examining a large book on the floor simply as an interesting object, worthy of exploration.
What is that, Andy?
When his attention is caught by an interesting noise, he hurries off to investigate, and then stops to attend to a beaded toy that presents real challenges. Pulling himself up to a standing position, he maintains his balance with one hand while using the other to grasp each bead securely and move it on the wire. In a few more weeks, he'll be able to push it all the way to the top and watch it zoom down the other side. Toward the end of the first year, babies become more skilled in using their hands to grasp and manipulate objects and toys. Developing this skill takes practice, and as part of this practice, they begin to use their forefingers together with their thumbs to pick up small objects. And adults must be vigilant about protecting them from choking hazards. Older babies can bang two objects together, or may even occasionally offer one to another person. Their play can seem to be briefly reciprocal, as when Caden knocks over the tower his dad has built with the nesting cups. This may be the beginning of Caden's expanding ability to engage with others in a play situation. A nice example of the ways in which expanding physical skills lead to expanding social skills. Babies begin to pull themselves to a standing position and to cruise or sidestep along furniture. However, crawling may continue to be the most efficient way to get around. Simon scooches along in pursuit of Bubbles. Caden crawls rapidly on all fours.
Hey, say hi. Hi.
Vocalizations start to acquire meaning, and Caden says, "Uh-oh." Although most parents and grandparents recognize sadly that a baby will rarely produce a specific sound in response to a request. Given ample opportunities to exercise developing muscles, babies learn to look, reach, grasp, let go, sit, crawl, stand, and sometimes walk, in addition to many other physical skills. The ability to communicate with others begins to emerge and flourish when adults respond with conversations, songs, books, and language play. Babies form deep emotional attachments and feeling of trust in their parents and caregivers. Brain development occurs in response to an environment rich in relationships, language, and sensory experiences. It may well be that at no other period in the human life cycle is growth as dramatic.
The Incy Wincy Spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the Incy Wincy Spider went up the spout again.